I had one service contractor, as an example. They were making great money on smaller jobs, onesie, twosie, 1 day, 2 day jobs, but they were always losing money on larger jobs, and they kept wanting to win larger jobs, and they were being successful at winning those jobs, but they couldn't make money on them. And so if you had a 2 or 3 week long job that they would lose, not only would they not make 20%, they may lose 10%. So really there's a 30% swing, and that would wipe out 15 other small jobs profit. And so they end up making zero profit. So I was able to go in and say, okay, why are we losing money on larger jobs?
Welcome to Men of Abundance, the podcast for those looking to level up their lives by hanging out with some of the greatest leaders and established professionals in our community, living a life of integrity, honor, and the abundance mentality. Prepare to pay it forward with your host, former Army medic turned lifestyle entrepreneur, Wally Carmichael.
What is going on, Men of Abundance? You know who I am, but just in case you don't, I am Wally Carmichael, your founder and host of the Men of Abundance podcast, the Pay It Forward community, showing you how to live a life of abundance in family, faith, finances, and fitness on your way to having more. You heard me right. You can start living a life of abundance on your way to having more, even before you have more. In fact, it's a requirement. You have to start living a life of abundance. You have to start enjoying your life, enjoying your journey today before you can actually obtain more. Now, I will say it is very well possible that you obtain more resources in your life. There are many things you can do to earn more money. There are many things you can do to have other connections in your life. But if you're incapable of happiness today with what you currently have in your life, chances are you are going to be unfulfilled when you reach that destination that you see in your mind's eye. And I 100% know this to be true after all of the conversations that I've had for Men of Abundance, all of the personal conversations that I've had with clients that I work with and other people that I talk to, and in my own personal life. That's how this whole journey got started, because I was ungratefully chasing a 6 and 7 figure income, not realizing that I was literally living the life that I wanted. I had the 6-figure income. I was living in Hawaii on the beach. I was already traveling the world. Heck, I'd already been to 23 countries on 5 continents. I had lived a life most have only dreamed of, yet I wasn't truly fulfilled. I wasn't truly enjoying it until I started being grateful for all the things that I had. Funny thing, once I started being more grateful for what I had in my life, so much more came into my life. So many more connections, stronger friendships, more amazing opportunities that I hadn't even considered, and yes, even more resources. And that's what I want for every single one of you, as well as those that you're connected with. So make sure you are abundant in your actions today by paying it forward and sharing Men of Abundance with others so they too can hear these conversations and start their journey of living a life of abundance. Now, our featured guest today is a CPA, but he's not your typical CPA. He is a visionary, a change agent, and a paradigm breaker for the business world. He was raised in the family business and took a love of business from an early age and turned it into his future. He's a results-oriented senior executive, public speaker, and consultant with more than 20 years of success. Brent crosses many business verticals. He leverages his extensive experience to help businesses improve profitability, increase capacity, develop overall sustainability, as well as change often outdated assumptions. Combined, this provides the gateway for a greatly enhanced overall return. Men of Abundance, it is my pleasure to introduce you to Brent McClure. Brent, welcome to Men of Abundance, brother. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Wally. Thank you so much for having me today.
Brother, it's my pleasure. It really is. Anytime anybody is recommended by Interview Valet, any of the team over there, I don't have to do much vetting. I just get right into it and say, absolutely, just go ahead and set them up, because I've been working with them for so long. They know exactly who I want to talk to, who's perfect for Men of Abundance. But what's your experience working with them so far?
Oh, that sounds great. I'm glad to hear positive feedback on your end. I've certainly had nothing but positive vibes from Interview Valet. They make it super simple and easy from my end as well. Just to hop on and they take care of everything and send me notes and a checklist of what I need to do beforehand. So it makes it real super simple.
Yeah, and as far as the guest, I know that they also go ahead and do all kinds of, some graphics and stuff like that, send it out on social media, and just keep pumping that out. So
That's right.
that's a huge benefit as well. Have you felt the benefit of that?
Absolutely, I have.
Excellent. Yeah, that's good to know, man. It's good to know that there's teams out there taking care of the guests, because I love having the conversations. It doesn't make any, the conversation is partially for me. That's part of why I started Men of Abundance, so I could have these amazing conversations with guys like yourself.
Right.
But, I want to share it with the world as well. So what's the point if we can't get it out there,
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense.
Excellent. So I like to start off the conversation with an attitude of gratitude, brother. What do you have to be grateful for today?
Man, I'm happy to be grateful to be alive today. It's a beautiful day here in Alabama. I'm happy to be here and just looking forward to facing the rest of today. Happy that I have 8 or 9 people that are close family, and everybody's doing great. 2 little kids are growing and healthy, so nothing to complain about today.
Wonderful. Is that where you're originally from?
I'm originally from Louisiana. I haven't really traveled out of the South too much. I'm originally from Louisiana. Now I'm in Alabama.
Okay, yeah, not too far. Not too
far away. Not too far
of a stretch. Not too much of a culture shock either.
No, not at all.
That's cool, man. I dig it. And usually I ask where you're at in the world, and what got you to move from Louisiana to Alabama?
Job opportunities, honestly. I went to school in Louisiana, and then I ended up in Dallas, Texas for a couple of years. And then I was transferred with a company to Birmingham, Alabama, which is sort of in the middle of the state. And then my wife and I, she graduated law school, and we had a couple of babies, and we found ourselves on the coast at the beach more often than not. So we decided to move down to Mobile, Alabama, right along the beachfront, and spend our days down here. So that's sort of why we're where we are.
Very nice, man. I've been to Mobile, Alabama. I liked it down there. I got to tell you, it was different for me back in the early 90s.
Yes.
I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona, and I was stationed in Panama at the time.
Okay.
My first duty station. And there's this boat that the Army has called a LCU. It's basically a landing craft. The ramp comes down. Well, the bow thruster was broke on it, and they're built and designed down there in Pascagoula, Mississippi.
Right.
And so we had to take 5 days at sea, and they had to have a medic on board. So I was just the medic, just hanging out on board, wasn't doing a whole lot. They kind of turned me into a decky where I had to put some work in, earn my keep.
Yeah.
And but we spent about a month down in Pascagoula, and we took a couple trips down. Matter of fact, I saw ZZ Top in concert in Mobile.
Oh, wow.
Which was pretty cool. Nobody else wanted to go on the team, so I went by myself. I said, screw you, I'm going.
Oh, wow.
Good thing I didn't get tested for drugs, because I'm sure I had a contact high after that concert.
Absolutely.
But it was interesting, man. It was an interesting place to be, being who I was back in the early 90s. It was different for me.
Yeah.
Especially from, going from Arizona to Panama and then down south. And that's the longest I've ever been in the South, quite frankly. It was a different environment.
It's a little different, that's for sure.
Yeah, very cool. So before we got talking here, I shared, a little bit about you, your bio that was shared on the intake form. And, that's all your professional stuff. Here on Men of Abundance, we like to get to know the man behind the abundance. So if you would, how would you describe yourself?
The first thing that comes to mind, Wally, is laid back. My first 2 initials are LB, and I like to tell people that stands for laid back.
I love that.
So I know you mentioned I'm a CPA, but I'm not your typical CPA. I feel like I'm more easygoing and not so uptight. As a lot of people, when they hear the word CPA, it's either they think of a green visor and a swinging light bulb, or they want help with their taxes. And that just doesn't really describe me or define me. I'm a born and bred business person and grew up on a farm in Louisiana. My parents had a grocery store, so I grew up in the grocery store, literally. I remember putting up boxes of groceries when I was 5 years old in exchange for quarters so I could play Miss Pac-Man in the back. Yeah, laid back, business-minded, love family. Like I said, my wife and I have two little ones, or they're not so little anymore, but 9 and 10, and just really focused on family and faith and building this life forward.
Yeah, I dig that. And I like that you said that you really focused on family and faith, because that's what Men of Abundance is all about, is living a life of abundance in family, faith, finances, and fitness. And, we have to have all of that dialed in and pulled together. In fact, I'll be speaking on that later on this evening on another front. But I dig that, I dig that you're laid back. Everybody's got this stereotype of the CPA. My CPA that I worked with for about 5 or 6 years out in Hawaii was kind of the same way. He was born and raised out there in Hawaii, really laid back dude. But what I like about what you're doing that most CPAs don't do anyway, that I've come in contact with, because I do aspire to work with one or two CPAs doing what I do as a business and marketing strategist.
Sure.
Is a lot of CPAs, that's all they do. They just do the books. They just do the taxes. And so many of these businesses need so much more.
That's right.
And they look at the CPA as the guy who's helping me with my finances, but really they cringe every year because they don't want to show the CPA their numbers.
Exactly.
Because they're getting worse and worse every year. And more importantly, the state that they're in, that they're personally in, is getting worse and worse every year. This is just a personal observation that I'm seeing with businesses that I'm talking to. What is your experience with that? You're obviously agreeing.
Yep, I'm agreeing with you. I'm seeing the same thing. And I see it all too often where business owners, they don't understand the numbers. They don't understand accounting or the books, so they ignore it. And then, like you say, at the end of the year, they dump everything on their CPA and they cringe because they don't know what the outcome is going to be. And it's very hard and difficult to run a business. And maybe we'll touch on this later, but it's difficult to run a business if you don't know what the numbers are, or you don't know how you're doing or progressing, right?
Exactly. 100%. At the same time, it's so easy as a business strategist, coach, consultant, whatever label, and they're all different, but it's so easy for somebody like myself and for yourself that can look at the numbers and can just make drastic, let me rephrase that, tiny little changes.
Yes.
To not the numbers. We're not changing the numbers. We're changing some strategies to improve the numbers, because by not looking at the numbers, you can't see the picture. By looking at the numbers, you can see the picture, and somebody who knows what they're doing can go, well, here's the problem. You're bleeding out here, and this is why. You're paying Uncle Jim over here, and what's he doing? He says he's marketing your business, but when's the last time you got any leads converted, type of thing,
Right, exactly.
So what are the experiences that you're seeing? Some of them, we are going to get a little bit more into that, but just real briefly, when you're able to sit down and look at the numbers, what are some things that you're able to point out like right away? It's
real easy for me to understand expenses like you're talking about, also cost of goods sold, and just by industry, depending on, what company or industry we're looking at, where I have experience with maybe multiple clients or companies in that same industry. So I can quickly look and say, okay, your cost of goods sold are 2% too much or 2% too low. What's going on? Or, your insurance costs are out of this world. Talk to me about that. Or maybe payroll's out of this world. What's going on? Just from comparing from my experience and working with multiple companies, many times it is payroll. They have too many people in certain areas and not enough people in other areas. And if they would just smooth that out, then things would be more streamlined and flow a lot easier, and work gets done more quickly and better.
Yeah, absolutely. And unfortunately, that comes down to a lot of personality issues. Either
Absolutely.
the owner of the business doesn't like conflict. They don't want to fire somebody or, let them go.
Absolutely.
That would be actually better for them and better for the business and better for all the other employees. There's just so many things going on there that is a little bit, takes a little bit more dynamics once you get in there and have a conversation and get to know them. You really got to get kind of personal, because I believe that business really is a spiritual entity.
Sure.
And it's a living, breathing entity. I mean, it really is.
It really is.
Because there's people involved, but you really have to be able to be the leader to take care of everybody across the board. Otherwise, you're going to end up shutting your doors and devastating a lot of families.
That's right. No doubt.
Yeah. So we're going to get more into this because, man, I can just talk about this subject forever. I geek out on this so hard. But we like to get to know a little bit about, the kick in the gut moment.
Sure.
Because sometimes this kick in the gut moment changes the trajectory of our life and where we thought we were going to go. So if you would, share that kick in the gut moment with us and really make us feel that.
Yeah, sure. No problem. So think back to 2008, 2009.
That hurts already.
Yeah, that hurts a little bit. And so I'm in the finance world, being a CPA, and I thought I would be protected from the financial collapse because I kept telling myself, hey, I'm a CPA, nothing's going to happen to me. Everybody needs CPAs. Well, guess what? Things happened. The financial collapse took place. It was September 2009. I went to work bright and early one day, ended up in a meeting and left that day without a job. Just had a newborn, didn't have a plan. Found out real quickly that there were abundant of CPAs walking the streets looking for jobs. I wasn't alone, which made it more difficult in finding another job. I kept having this entrepreneurial itch, if you will, growing up in a family business. I sort of knew that I wanted to have my own business or my own structure sometime, somehow. And this really just sort of forced me into it. I wasn't quite ready to make that leap, or didn't think I was ready to make that leap. But given the cards that I was dealt and the opportunities that didn't exist, it was time to launch my own brand.
What were the steps that you took to put that into place? And, we're going to get a little bit more into it, but how did that work out for you?
Yeah, it worked out pretty well eventually. It was a difficult time. I remember just coming home from not having a job anymore, and I had to confess that to my wife, and that was difficult for sure. And without a plan, it took me several months to really come, I guess, to grieve, to go through all the processes of grief, right? And then come around to, okay, I can do this. I can start my own business and do this. Consulting on the pick up a client here or there. So started out with a website, marketing myself, going to all the meetings I possibly could, all the chamber events, any kind of business meetings. I started speaking a little bit at events and conferences just to get my name out there. One client led to another client, finally had enough clients to get back on my feet. And I've been doing that pretty much ever since.
So as a man and working through all of that and starting from the process of having to come home and tell your wife that, we have no longer have steady income coming in at this point. How did you mentally get through that? What do you think was the anchor that held you to make it through that? Because a lot of people didn't.
A lot of people didn't make it through that. The anchor I had was we were active in church. I knew that I grew up in church as well. I knew that I wasn't going to be presented with anything I couldn't get through. I just didn't know how I was going to get through it at the time. So I guess my anchor would have been faith that things were going to work out eventually, one way or the other. Something would give and work out in my favor because, like I said, I'm not going to be presented with anything I can't conquer.
That's a great attitude to have. And in addition in there somewhere is, you stood up to the challenge, and it only made you a stronger man,
Yeah,
a stronger
stronger, more,
husband, stronger dad.
yeah, stronger, more resilient, understanding now that I can look back and say, hey, that was actually the best thing that ever happened to me was that. Who knows where I would be otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. So at what point, so you're already trained as a CPA and you're crunching the numbers. At what point did you pick up the skills to also do what you do for businesses outside of other than just being the CPA? Because I find a lot of CPAs, they don't really take that next step.
Yes, that's you're very true about that. I think growing up in a business helped me tremendously. They can't teach you how to run a business in college.
Right. Man, I'm going to play that one over and over again. That's absolutely correct.
So that gave me a superior foundation to most people just having a lifetime of business experience in retail. Being able to talk to small business owners around town, just go and meet with them and say, hey, what's keeping you up at night? What's going on that I can help you with? Just thinking outside the box. It's not just bookkeeping and tax returns. It's how can I help a business grow and build upon the foundation they've established? What are some tweaks or curves that I could put in place that could help them become more profitable, larger, scaling if that's what they so choose, or maybe it's to make more money to give back. Maybe that's their goal. Whatever their goal is, how can I help them achieve their goal?
Yeah, and you kind of use that as a leverage, if you will, because wanting to grow, great. Why?
Right.
I mean, honestly, I see a lot of businesses that grow. I literally was having a conversation yesterday with a guy who that was his answer. He wants his business to grow. And I was like, well, why? What's the point of that? Where are you on profits and your revenue? How much are you paying yourself? How's the business doing? Because a lot of business owners have this idea that they have to grow or profit when you can actually profit and grow. I met a guy several weeks back, and I'm not going to get into the exact industry he's in, but the bottom line is this: $55 million business in 4 years in revenue, but he himself is flat broke.
Yeah.
What's going on? There's a lot going on there.
There's a lot going on.
And that's just sad. And he thinks that's normal. He actually continued to say that other entrepreneurs, other business owners that are just getting into the, starting this process, this journey,
right,
to be prepared because that's what you have to look forward to. I'm like,
no,
that's ridiculous.
That is ridiculous.
Yeah, it makes no sense to me. So what are you able to do? I mean, we look at the numbers and we have these conversations. What are you able to do? Or let's get into this. What are some good news stories that come out of what you've been doing?
Yeah, sure. So I am able to look at things from a strategic standpoint, and maybe the business owner, or I find that a lot of small business owners are sort of in the ditch and they're running the business, or they're working in the business, not on the business. And I can help them take a couple of steps back and let's look at a more holistic view of the business and see what things we could tweak or change. I had one service contractor, as an example. They were making great money on smaller jobs, onesie, twosie, 1 day, 2 day jobs, but they were always losing money on larger jobs, and they kept wanting to win larger jobs, and they were being successful at winning those jobs, but they couldn't make money on them. And so if you had a 2 or 3 week long job that they would lose, not only would they not make 20%, they may lose 10%. So really there's a 30% swing, and that would wipe out 15 other small jobs profit. And so they end up making zero profit. So I was able to go in and say, okay, why are we losing money on larger jobs? And it came down to systems. They didn't have a system in place to track cost on those larger jobs, and they were running jobs basically from their hip pocket, I like to say, and trying to keep up with everything mentally or on a notepad and not electronically. And so by the time the job's over, they're 120% of cost and they still have 2 days left on the job and no one knows because they're not tracking it. So we were able to put a system in place of how they could track costs on those jobs, as well as bill periodically throughout the job to help their cash flow situation. And then they started making profits on larger jobs because they could control costs better. Because you just forget, if you're a project manager and you're running 5 jobs and all of them are 2 or 3 weeks long, you can't remember what cost you have on any one of those jobs if you're a week or 2 in to the job. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. I mean, the whole thing is about systems, and systems usually aren't all that sexy. And that's why
That's right.
They seem complicated, but they're not. They're just, if you have the right systems in place and the tracking mechanisms, it tells the story for you.
It does.
So it's really good systems.
And that particular business owner, I mean, he said, I'm just banging my head against the wall. I can't figure out what we're doing wrong. And he was just at a loss. He was just about to throw his hat in and just quit working towards getting larger jobs. And it was like, hang on, let's take a couple steps back. Talk to me about your systems. And then real quick, he was like, I don't know if we have any systems. All right. Okay. There's your problem. Let's fix it.
What do you feel would have happened to that particular business had you not been able to come in and intervene?
It would have stayed a mom and pop, small one day, 2 day jobs, and probably eventually went out of business.
Yeah. And some other tragic events would have happened in there based on my experience. Some divorces possibly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe not just the business owner, but many of the employees, they would have had to move on.
Right.
It turns
It's
sour
a cascading
really
effect. Yeah, it would have been a negative cascading effect for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And man, that right there is just what pumps me up so much to know that there's guys out there like you that are able to turn these businesses around in such a way, save jobs, save marriages, save lives. It really is that serious, guys. And you think about 2008, 2009 for a lot of people, but many people are living this day in and day out. They've had businesses 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years, and they've never paid themselves a dime, and they're still doing it. Like you mentioned, grocery store. I knew somebody that owned a grocery store for 20 some odd years. They were literally working to keep this place open.
Oh my gosh.
Employees.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, ridiculous.
I can't imagine
and
that.
They thought that was normal to them. And what it was, the way I found out about it was the daughter. The father had passed away, so the mother was left behind. And so the daughter flew out to, kind of see what was going on, help mom out, see if she could help out with the business. And she was appalled. She had no idea her parents were living like this.
Wow.
And just keeping this thing.
Just no idea.
Just keeping the doors open. Yeah.
Yeah. And so many people think that's just what it is. Like, I get into business for freedom, but I can't make any money. And now I'm sort of stuck. What do I do? Mm-hmm. And they forget or don't understand or don't know that services like the two of us provide are out there and so many other people provide to help them, see the light, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, the same is true, say, for instance, CPAs. And out here in Florida, there's a dentist office on every corner. I don't know how any of them make money, but I'm working on getting into working with some of those. But chiropractors, they're taught in school to be excellent chiropractors. They're not taught how to run a business. And what they do is they set up the same website as the guy down the street. They get the same return on, conversion rates and all this kind of stuff, 5, maybe 8%. And they think that's normal. Right. And it is normal in their industry. Yeah. But that doesn't have to be their norm. And all you have to do is tweak a few things in the marketing, get more clients and serve them in a different way. And, just so many other strategies to where they're just going through, they're actually able to take some vacations now and again.
I love it.
Yeah. So we are at the point, Brent, where we are going to pay it forward. You ready to do that?
Let's do it. I'm excited.
Excellent. So share 1 to 3 actionable steps that men of abundance can take today.
Be nice to your CPA or your financial advisor.
What specifically is that? If I'm coming to you, what would you say? Wow, Wally was really nice today. What's that look like?
Well, you have been nice today.
Oh, good.
No, be open and honest with your financial advisor, CPA, your CFO or part-time CFO, whatever you go to. be open and honest, and try to create those conversations now. Talk to them now for 2019. Don't wait until 2020 comes around to say, oh, well, tell me what happened in 2019. Talk to them about what's going to happen with your 3-year plan, your 5-year plan. Where do you want to be in 3 years? Doing the exact same thing you're doing today? Probably not.
Yeah, this is one of those situations where, guys, bad news gets worse when it's not when the story's not told.
Yeah,
you can't sweep it under because ultimately you're going to be standing at the doorsteps of Uncle Sam.
Yeah,
or they're going to be standing at your doorstep.
They'll be standing at your doorstep eventually.
And you don't want that, man. If
no,
you've
not
been
at
in
all.
that situation, it's a terrible place to be. Any other actionable steps they can take?
I think if they do that, and just like I said, be open and honest. Learn your numbers. Learn how to read a financial statement. Understand what the numbers mean. Understand the difference between a balance sheet, an income statement, a cash flow statement. If you can read those and understand what they mean, you'll be light years ahead of most people.
Absolutely. First off, have one of those.
Yeah, right.
So what rituals make the biggest impact in your life, Brent?
I'm going to say the biggest ritual that probably has the most impact is exercise, believe it or not. And I was so anti-exercise. Well, I wasn't necessarily anti-exercise. I didn't have time for exercise is what I kept telling myself when we had a couple of kids and I was working 60 hours a week. But then I found time and I just feel refreshed and rejuvenated, and everything seems to work a lot better when I'm exercising. And then if I go a few days without exercising, I can certainly tell because I'm in a slump or I'm kind of gloomy. It's a natural way to fight depression and anxiety is through exercise. Absolutely.
100%. I totally agree with that. What are you reading or listening to that you'd recommend to our abundant leaders, and why?
So I would recommend, I've read these books. I've read a couple of books from John Cotter, who's a Harvard professor who has spent 40 plus years of research on changes and change management. So he has a couple of books. They've been out for a while, but one is Our Iceberg is Melting. It's a story about these penguins, and it's real easy. It's an easy read, but it talks to you about how to meet and overcome any kind of change. If you understand penguins are on an iceberg and their iceberg's melting and they have to figure out what to do, and each one of the little penguins represents somebody else in your business or in your environment. It's an easy, fun read. Another one he has is change management and how to correctly get through change. I think something like 85% of changes fail in the business world. So it's difficult to instill some type of change, whether it's software or a new employee or a new location. People hate change. Those two books are awesome ways to understand how to implement change. And then Ray Dalio has a book out, Life and Work Principles, that I love. It's just some of his principles on exactly that, life and work. And it's a super thick book. It's like 3 or 4 inches thick, but I just flip it open and just read one. And then a few days later, I'll just randomly pick another page and read another one. So it's not something to sit down and read from front to back, or it's not for me, but it's been a great reference.
Yeah, great recommendations, and I'll have those listed in the show notes, guys, so you don't have to worry about writing that down if you're driving right now or something. What do you feel holds most people back from living a life of true abundance?
I'm going to say it's themselves. I think there's a glass ceiling or a walled garden or whatever you want to call it, and a lot of people they don't know what they don't know, and they can't admit that.
Yeah. Goodness, man. I just think about back in my mid-20s where I just absolutely knew everything there was to know.
Absolutely.
And now I just turned 50 a couple of days ago on Sunday. And for years at this point now, I know very little. I will never know it all, but I'm willing to learn as I go.
Right. I'm a lifelong learner now. When I was in my 20s, I thought, well, gosh, I know everything. I know absolutely everything about everything and can do anything. But now I'm like, I got to keep reading and keep listening and keep doing because I don't know that much.
Yeah, which is okay,
Which is
and
fine.
that's okay.
Yeah,
You only need to know a few things to
that's
be,
right.
and to make a living out of what it is that you know and what you can share.
That's right.
You don't have parenting figured out. It changes with each next year that they get older. You don't have
Doesn't it?
marriage figured out. You don't have any of this stuff figured out. But
That's right.
there's people out there who are a little bit further along than you are in business, life, fitness, you name it. Plug into those people. Don't be afraid to ask. We all have to learn by mistakes, but it don't have to be our mistakes.
That's right. That's exactly right.
So what does being a man of abundance mean to you, Brent?
That's a great question. And you sort of mentioned this earlier, I think, when we first got started. But what I like to look at is sort of my business, fitness, emotional health, financial health. If all of those are hitting on all cylinders, then I'm living a life of abundance. If I'm not paying attention to one of those, say emotional health, if I'm not meditating or not going to church and not following through with my habits, then I'm suffering in that one area. Then it's going to bring the other areas down, and I'm not a holistic person living a life of abundance. But if I can get all of those areas functioning as best I can, then I'm living a life of abundance.
Very cool. I dig it, man. So we are going to have your website linked up.
Awesome.
In the show notes. And that is, just so I can mention it here, BrentMcClure.com. That's MCCLURE.com, BrentMcClure.com. But before I let you go, man, what else would you like to ensure that our abundant leaders get out of our conversation today?
I think we've covered most of it. Wally, you did a fantastic job, but I would just say pay attention to your financials, work on your business, not in your business. Follow me online, read some of my blogs. If I can be any assistance, feel free to reach out.
Absolutely, man. I greatly appreciate it. Go out, live your life of abundance, Brent. Keep paying it forward because it's making a huge difference in so many lives, because for every business you save, you're literally saving 10 to, who knows, hundreds of people
right.
From one business. And that's a huge task to take on, man. So just keep doing it.
Yes, sir. I dig it. Thank you.
My pleasure. All right, I have a couple action steps for you guys today. Number one, whether you're a business owner or not, it is imperative that you have a good relationship with a very good CPA, or somebody who not only knows how to do taxes, but can actually educate you on how to keep more of what you earn. So many people are literally throwing their money away and just giving it to Uncle Sam and thinking that's okay. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying don't pay your taxes. I am all about paying taxes. That's why we live in a civilized society that we live in. I do question where my tax dollars are being spent, but that's for a whole other conversation. But it's very interesting that somebody will go out and start an MLM or a network marketing business just to make a couple extra bucks, when you can literally put money back in your pocket if you know the tax laws and are taking advantage of the tax rules, especially if you're a home-based business owner. If you manage your business from home, did you realize that you are in the group of all taxpayers that have the most tax deductions than any other group of taxpayers out there? Do your research, make sure you are getting the right deductions for the right reasons. So the first action step is to get to know a very good CPA and get educated on how to maximize your income and assets. Now, for you business owners out there, chances are you are absolutely amazing at what you do as a technician in your business. Yet, based on my experience and after the conversation that Brett and I just had, it is very obvious that many of you are not as awesome at business and marketing strategies. This is one of those situations where what you don't know is literally costing you thousands, and in most cases, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So this action step for you business owners is to connect with somebody who can show you business strategies that will help you uncover hundreds of thousands of dollars in your business without you even spending any more money on marketing or advertising. This is extremely important for the life of your business, your own personal life, and the well-being of your family and many other families that your business touches in one way or another. Now, go out and live your life of abundance, and make sure to pay it forward.
That's all for today, Abundance Leaders. For more about our guests and the powerful information we shared with you today, be sure to sign up for our mailing list at menofabundance.com. We appreciate your time and look forward to hanging out with you on our next episode. So until then, be sure to pay it forward and live your life of abundance.